In the last video, I got the boards ready so I can run them through the table saw. Now I'm going to rip the boards to 3 inches. I picked out the smallest dimension out of all the boards I had, and that's where I came up with 3 inches. The final dimensions for the wall art I'm making is a 16 by 9 inch plaque. Now I'm going to glue them up. I'm going to go through the boards and I'm going to put together the ones I want to go together. And I'm going to glue them up in 3s. The boards that I have from the pallets are either oak or cherry. So I'll make sure all the cherry are together and all the oak are together. Once I have them arranged the way I want them, I'll glue and clamp them together. Sounds like my batteries are charged. These are all different thicknesses, so I'm just going to try and get them close to even. And another set of batteries are charged. Let me know in the comment section if you can guess what battery charger and batteries they are. Now I'll run these through the planer to a thickness of about 1/4 of an inch. And I'll be planing both sides of the boards. If you have a planer, you probably know by now that the planer is very loud, so don't forget your hearing protection. I don't have a lot of places to set the planer up in my garage, and setting it up on top of the table saw, it's a little bit slippery, so I'm going to use a bar clamp to keep it from moving around. Now I'll get back at it. After I'm done planing them, I'll rip them down to 16 inches. One of the plaques I'm going to stain with Varathane gel stain. It's called Weathered Gray. I'm just using a disposable foam brush to put the stain on. I'm also going to stain both sides of the board. After about an hour, then I seal the board with a Rust-Oleum satin clear. And I'm going to seal all the edges, front and back, and all the sides. This will help prevent warping. And I am making 2 of these at a time. The other one was stained with a cherry gel stain from Varathane. Once the boards were dry enough to touch, I'm going to flip them over and spray the other side. I'm going to set them on little 1/4-inch nuts so that they don't stick to my table. This will also allow airflow to get underneath them and they'll continue to dry. And I'll do the same thing for the cherry colored one. Then I'm going to set these aside and I won't put the second coat on until I have the frame and all the lettering attached. Now I'll cut the pieces for the frame. I'm going to cut these out of poplar, and these poplar pieces were not actually part of the pallet, but part of the packaging that was on the pallet. I'm going to rip these to 3/4 by 3/4. And I'm going to cut this corner out here to set the plaque into. I'm going to set the fence of the saw to cut a 3/8 notch out, and I'll set the saw blade 3/8 of an inch deep. Now that they're ripped, I'm going to sand and spray them before I cut them into pieces. In the future, I won't do it this way. I will cut my parts, put it together, then sand and spray them after I've made the frames. At this stage, I'm going to dust them off and spray them with black primer. After the paint's dry, I'll start cutting the frame to size. I'll start by cutting a 45-degree angle on one side. I wasn't paying attention and I didn't put the camera in the right place for these first few cuts, so I'll fast forward and show you where I was measuring from. Because this board sits inside the frame, I'm going to take all of my measurements and marks from the back side. You can see here where I line the angle up with the back side of the plaque. And this is where I'll mark it for my next cut. Once I have one of each side cut, I'll use them to mark the other pieces so that they're the same size. I've never used this method of putting a frame together before, and as you watch, you probably can tell. Once it's set up, I'll sand everything down, sand it with 220, and then reprime it. I'm not going to nail the frame to the backing until I'm done putting all the letters on. I just feel like it'd be easier to set the lettering in before the frame. If you haven't seen how I got this far, check out my other videos. This video is getting a little long, so in the next video, I'll show you how I finish this project.